Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are continuing our series where we are making mass production easy. So we're continuing with our Easter cards today. I'm going to share a few tips with you on how to make a card similar to this and what makes it easy to mass produce. So first things first, we're going to talk about color. So I have Altenew ink cubes here and I have Altenew artist markers. So we're going to do just very, very simple one color, no blending coloring on some floral images today. And we'll talk about those and why those are easy. But we're keeping it consistent across the board. So what I mean by that is I chose the Altenew ink colors because I have their artist markers. And that means that I could just grab the same colors in my artist markers. So for example, I have Pink Crystal, their ink cube, and that's what I use to do some stamping, but I also used the Pink Crystal artist marker. So I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I didn't have to come up with new colors. I didn't have to go to like my swatches and figure out what colors match or coordinate. It's all done for me. So that's one thing that you can do to make things simple for yourself. The other thing is I chose this particular Simon Says Stamp floral image because these are very, very easy to color. There is very little coloring on them, and because they are smaller images, you don't really need to do a bunch of ink blending. You just wanted to get some color down, and that is why I chose these particular floral images. And this is from Simon Says Stamp, and it is Garden Greetings, excuse me. And then the sentiment comes from Happy Easter from Simon Says Stamp. So again, I did very simple coloring on them. I used 2 different colors for greens, and then I just did the florals in one color. I chose the Pink Crystal, the Water Hyacinth, and the Lavender Fields for the flowers themselves. I did Misty more for the centers of the flowers, and then I did Jade and Green Lakes, I believe, for the greenery. So again, going to your stash, if you know, if you maybe you have Olo markers or Copic markers, or maybe you have colored pencils, that's your preferred coloring medium of choice, then use that in colors that you are familiar with, that you know coordinate with any kind of paper or stamps you have. This is a paper pad, a 6x6 paper pad that I got from Inlovearts, and it doesn't have a name on it per se. It's called Polka Dots, but it's a PA2039-6, and I will list that below. I will list everything I'm using below. I did stamp those floral images in some Gina K Obsidian Amalgum ink, just because that is Copic safe, and I did let that dry overnight. You don't have to let it dry that long. That's just kind of how my day went, so that's what happened. So this pattern paper has 2 different colorways. So it has to where the polka dots are white and the background is colored, and then it has the reverse, so where the polka dots are colored. And I chose that just so that as I begin to layer this together, things look cohesive. The color palette is cohesive across the card. And again, I'm not having to reinvent the wheel. This is an embossing folder from We Are Memory Keepers, when they were called We Are Memory Keepers. And this is some light gray cardstock from my stash. I apologize, I don't know what this is called, what color this is called, but I get all of my cardstock from Cardstock Warehouse. I have found that the quality is good, the color selection is good, and the more you buy, the deeper of a discount you get. So I've been pleased with that. And I just ran each of those through my die cut machine with an embossing sandwich that worked for that. And this is the end product I got. I thought it looked like a basket you would go and gather eggs with on Easter, so I thought it was very fitting. And I cut these to A2 sized, and when I ran them through my embossing folder, some of them are, I don't know if, I know that when you run things through your embossing folder, and you can tell even on this card, the top of it is still showing of the card base, white card base. My card bases are made out of HAMMERMILL cardstock, by the way. You can still see a little bit of that hanging out. So if you're worried and don't want to have to go back through and trim like I have to, I would suggest cutting your panels that you're going to run through your embossing folder a little bit bigger so that you don't have to worry so much about having to go back and trim, like I did here. So I did go back and adhere all of these down to just liquid glue just to keep it simple. I let them dry using my magnets, and then I did go through and trim everything down. The panels that I stamped on were also A2 sized, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, because I knew I was going to do some trimming and cutting. So I went in each of those pattern papers that I had, I cut to 2 by 5 inches, or 5 1/4. Maybe it was 5 1/4. Anyway, I cut this size because I thought it was, I thought it would balance the card well. And I'm again going to glue this down flat. That is another thing. So when you are trying to make things simple, gluing things down flat, having less dimension, less layers that you have to put on, and this is a fairly layered card, but everything is glued down flat. So you don't have to cut foam tape, you don't have to cut scrap cardstock to layer behind. And again, the color palette is consistent across. I only had to pick colors one time, and then I was able to stamp and color with those. I went to one pattern paper pad, and I was able to cut everything from that. The color inspiration came from that. That is another way to kind of keep things consistent and speed up the mass production process. I went to my stash and I have these stitched squares. I'm not sure where I got these from, but I cut out the stamped and colored from a smaller square, and then the pattern paper I cut from the next size up square. And I'm gluing them down flat once again. These are going to be donated to a nonprofit that does that cares for those in nursing homes. So I don't want them to have to pay extra postage. So I do try to be conscious of that and keep things fairly flat for them, so that they don't have to pay extra postage, because that kind of, in my eyes, defeats the purpose of donating them cards. So I just glued the colored panel down to the pattern paper panel. And if you'll see, I'm trying to alternate. So and this is another thing to do that can help the mass production process go a lot quicker, is come up with one style of card that works and stick with it. Don't try to go back and reinvent the wheel, just stick with it. So you'll see that if I did the square in the color that where the background was colored and the dots were white, then I glued it to the opposite one. So in this card, it is glued to where the dots are colored, and it's glued onto the strip of pattern paper that has the background colored. That is one thing to do that keeps it consistent. You're not reinventing the wheel. You know where everything is going to go, and it just makes it go a lot faster. I did want to add a little bit of shine to these, so I just took a Spectrum Noir clear glitter brush pen and I'm putting that over the flowers. I could have put it over some of the elements that are larger, those larger leaves and that kind of thing, but I just chose to add a little bit of color to those florals, and then these cards are done. If you wanted to jazz them up even further and put gems, sequins, glossy accents, you absolutely could, but I felt like this was easy to mail and again, easy to put together. So I hope these tips helped you. I hope you felt inspired. And until then, we will see you next time. Bye.